Good morning and welcome. You're watching Market Cafe on ET Now. We take you in this show through all that's happened in global markets yesterday, as well as what you've missed out post-market yesterday, catching up on all of that news, as well as all that's happening in global business news, as well as domestic business news. So stay tuned through the 1 hour with Ankita Saxena and myself, and we'll take you through all of that. But first off, to Ankita. Ankita, talk to us about what global markets are up to. Where do we stand where the global handover is concerned?
Harsh, the global handover is pretty mixed and pretty directionless. The US debt ceiling talks are going on, and there is no such direction that the market has really taken, because we are still the 1st of June is close by, and the US could default, and the meeting is underway. So the markets were pretty mixed yesterday as well. The S&P 500 finished was little changed, as Wall Street is now awaiting the pivotal debt ceiling meeting. The benchmark index inched 0.02%, very flat, but ended the day in the green. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, however, lost 140 points, so was down 0.4% in trade. The Nasdaq Composite gained 0.5% in trade. Now, Monday's move brought the tech-heavy index to its highest close and highest intraday level since the August. Now, President Joe Biden and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy are set to meet and discuss, of course, and continue with their debt ceiling talks, and that's something that market is really watching out for, and we are hoping for a conclusion very soon. The European markets also closed mixed, pretty directionless there. The Pan-European Stock 600 closed 0.01% higher, very flat, ended the day in the green. FTSE was up 0.1%, DAX was down 0.3%, and CSE was also down 0.1%. So very mixed, directionless global handover coming in there, Harsh.
Right, Ankita, and let's talk about oil as well, right? Because that has been slightly volatile of late, but not too volatile. We've been playing a tight band of that $70 to $75 a barrel, and really nothing changes even on the oil front even today. Really playing in that tight band. $72 is where WTI is gaining around 1% or so, and Brent is at around $76 a barrel. So what we're seeing largely is currently that demand continues to be quite decent. Second half, at least analysts now expecting demand to really recover. So that's one positive. But the other piece to that is they're expecting supplies to remain tight. So there won't be much movement on the supply front. OPEC Plus as well as supplies from Canada continue to remain tight. So on the back of that, there is some amount of bullishness coming into oil. And that's the rise, the 1% rise that we've seen in oil over yesterday. So that's where we're at where oil is concerned. Let's take it to what are the key cues to watch out for in trade through today. And Ankita, talk to us about some of those.
That's right, Harsh. Let us quickly go through the events that we need to keep a track of. In the global cues, we have the PMI data from US, UK and the Eurozone that is likely to come out today, and we will be tracking that and getting you all the data tomorrow morning. Q4 earnings, we have Amara Raja, Biocon, Ashok Leyland, Bajaj Electricals, NMDC and Metro Brands that will be coming out with their Q4 earnings. Apart from that, we have Dixon Technologies, Thyrocare, Varroc Engineering, Somene Ceramics, Fortis Healthcare, Schneider Electric, Subsequent Scientific and JSW Energy that will also be coming out with their Q4 earnings. And of course, we have Century Textiles, Somene Ceramics and Varroc and Bajaj Electricals that will be mulling over fundraise. And in other events, we have banks that will be starting an exchange of the 2,000 rupee notes as of today, because we know that 2,000 rupee notes will be going out of system very soon. And we have G20 TIWG meet in Bengaluru from the 23rd to the 25th of May, and we have the Qatar Economic Forum which will be starting today, going on till the 25th of May.
Right, those cues is showing that the SGX 50 absolutely flat as we speak. Slight positive bias coming through, but otherwise absolutely flat. Let's straight move on to what global news is on. News on the global front is all about. Let's talk first about the debt ceiling, because that's going to be largely in focus. The US House Speaker Kevin McCarthy said he had a productive and professional chat with President Joe Biden, but no deal had been reached amid the government's efforts to avert a potentially catastrophic economic event. If the debt limit is not raised, the US will default on its bills as early as the 1st of June. The date reaffirmed by the Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen multiple times.
And staying with the macros in the latest Fed speak, the Minneapolis Federal Reserve President Neil Kashkari has said that a pause in rate hikes in the June meeting would not mean an end to the rate hiking cycle.
Right, a Federal Reserve survey shows that US inflation levels, which still remain worryingly above the central bank's tolerance levels, has now in fact resulted in the erosion of the sense of financial security among households. The annual survey notes that the number of people saying they felt less secure about retirement and had delayed purchases or swapped into cheaper products as they shopped has gone up.
And more concerns coming up on the macro front, even as deposit runs have led to the collapse of US banks this year. Commercial real estate is not far from causing problems for lenders, says the JP Morgan Chase chief Jamie Dimon. He also warned banks to prepare for rates going higher from this point onwards.
Right, and switching to corporate on the global front, Facebook owner Meta has been slapped by a record $1.3 billion fine by the European privacy regulator. It has been given a deadline to stop shipping users' data to the US after regulators said it failed to protect personal information from the American security services.
And Microsoft chief Bill Gates has said that the future top AI player is poised to disrupt search engine services, productivity, and online shopping sites. Technology be so profound that it could radically alter user behaviors. Gates said that there is 50-50 chance that this future AI winner will be either a startup or a tech giant.
Right, let's talk about the European budget carrier Ryanair traces steps back to profits as airfares jumped. The company expects to clock in better profits fueled by the summer boom. Aims for a 10% profit jump after profits hit 1.4 billion euros, thereabouts 1.43 billion euros to be absolutely precise.
And Prime Minister Narendra Modi has arrived in Sydney as a part of the third and final leg of his three-nation visit after concluding his visit to Papua New Guinea. PM Modi was received by Australian counterpart Anthony Albanese. PM Modi will attend a community event to celebrate the Indian diaspora in the country.
Right, 14-year-old Malisha Kharwa, who hails from Mumbai's Dharavi slum, has become the face of luxury beauty brand Forest Essentials, the Yuvati collection. Kharwa's Instagram account has over 2.5 lakh followers, and in recent years, Kharwa has landed multiple modeling gigs. How was she discovered and what's the journey been like? Tamanna Inamdar caught up with her in an exclusive chat.
मॉडल बनने का शौक तो बचपन से था जब मैं 5 years की थी तभी से I saw actress Rampok Priyanka Chopra. The way she walked, I got inspired by her, and I thought that I will be also one day. I will also do modeling, photo shoots, all these things. And finally, yes, I'm doing all these things.
So tell me what has changed in your life, and when did this change? You're 14 years today. And it's a difficult time for everyone. How are you balancing being a model? What is your life like?
First of all, now I'm in 10th standard, so it's tough for me to handle modeling, photo shoots, study, everything. So I means when my photo shoot is there, I cancel my photo shoot because when my study is going on, I don't need photo shoot because my study is more important than photo shoot.
That's a good girl. 10th standard is a tough year.
Yes, I know both exams.
So you have to get ready for board exams, you have to get ready for modeling as well. When you meet other models, have you interacted with other models? How do you feel about, you know, owning your heritage? मैंने एक चीज़ नोट किया, आप अपने इंस्टाग्राम में भी प्रिंसेस फ्रॉम द स्लम लिखते हैं. आप जहाँ से आए हैं आप उसको पूरी तरह ओन करते हैं. ऐसा क्यों और इसके पीछे क्या राज है?
क्योंकि जब मतलब कोई गरीब रहता है फिर वो डायरेक्ट मतलब ऐसे फोटोशूट ये सब करके डायरेक्ट से हाई मतलब मोर पावरफुल हो जाता है, पॉपुलर हो जाता है, तो ज्यादा लोग घमंड करने लगते हैं. एंड आई डोंट लाइक दिस because I've seen one actress, I will not tell her name. My daddy told me about this actress, and she told that my father asked her that can you take a photo with me, and she told my father that no, I don't have time for this, and she went. So my father told me this, so I told that how rudely they talk with their fans because of fans they have become popular. So we should not do this all these things or talk rudely to anyone.
और आगे के क्या प्लान है आपके? हमें सुनने में आ रहा है कि आपको अब और भी प्रोजेक्ट्स मिल रहे हैं. आप आगे बहुत सारा कुछ करने वाली है. क्या शेयर कर सकते हैं हमारे साथ?
फिलहाल तो मैं फॉरेस्ट एसेंशियल ब्रांड उसके लिए हूँ. मतलब हर जगह मेरे पोस्टर्स है, तो बाद में मेरे फ्रेंड्स लोग सब लोग देखते हैं तो वो लोग खुश होते हैं. ज्यादा मैं खुश नहीं होती इतना, वो लोग खुश होते हैं कि आप पोस्टर में हूँ. फिर वो लोग फोटो खींचते हैं, मेरे को मेंशन करते हैं. बहुत सारे जन ने मेरे को इन्फ्लुएंस है, फेमस पॉपुलर लोग ने भी मेंशन किया कि आप इस पे हो, पोस्टर पे हो. तो फॉरेस्ट एसेंशियल की वजह से मतलब मैं ज्यादा ही पॉपुलर हो गई, तो मेरे को थैंक्स देना चाहिए.
That was the 14-year-old modeling prodigy from the slums. We'll move on then. It's time for us to slip into a short break, but before that, we at Times Network are back with our flagship event, India Economic Conclave, which is known to set the stage for driving India's economic agenda. As we move forward on the path of integrated, equitable development, which is all-inclusive, all-pervasive, universal, and one that strengthens not just the Indian economy, but the global one as well. To pursue this agenda, the theme of this year is India, the emerging third superpower. IEC will feature the biggest voices from politics, global markets, economy, and corporate world. So get ready to catch all the action here on Times Network.
Welcome back. You're watching Market Cafe on ET Now. We spoke about a few things or news around the globe with regard to business news. Let's quickly take a check on what Asian markets are up to. Let's talk first about the Nikkei. It's up around 0.75% or thereabouts. Positive start for the Nikkei despite a bit of a soft start or a soft close to the US markets. So definitely the Nikkei holding up. We're looking at gains on the Kospi as well, 0.25% higher in early trade. We're seeing gains on the Hang Seng as well. Even within China basket, there seems to be some amount of positivity, a third of a percent higher. The Shanghai though, marginally lower, around a fifth of a percent lower, slight negative bias coming through, and the ASX 200 up around a fifth of a percent as well. So we're seeing largely gains, except the Shanghai. Shanghai is slightly lower in early trade, at least to start off, Ankita.
All right, then, Ash. Moving on, we had Sunil Singhania, who's the founder of Abacus Asset Management, who stated that India was doing relatively well versus the rest of the world in the last 1 year, which in turn attracted global investments. Listen in to this slice of the conversation.
Last 1 year has been a very difficult year. You had the Russia-Ukraine war, oil went up to 140, all the commodities went up sharply. And obviously India was relatively doing very, very well. And it's typical that when you have your view on the global equity markets not being positive and there is one country which does well. So one is the overweight increases and the other is, you tend to knock off what is doing well. So I think that was one reason maybe. And second is, there is no one-on-one correlation on a day-to-day basis that, if they are positive, they will pump in like billions and billions of dollars immediately. It takes time. Obviously, India has always been an expensive country. It was very expensive maybe from their end last year. It is now at a reasonable level, and we are already seeing, this month we are almost seeing close to $800-900 million come into the country. So I don't know whether it will be near term or medium term, but we are very positive that over the next 18 months we should get back what we sort of lost in terms of outflows over the last 18 months. Overweight on India from foreign investors is not as high as it used to be, and therefore there is room for some reallocation there. And as I said, the world dynamics are changing. We call it the 4D, in favor of India. One is democracy. I think the world has realized the importance of democracy post what happened in Russia and maybe a threat of what might happen in China. The second is demographics. I think India is going to be a young country at least for the next 20 years with a median age of like 30 years or lower. Third is obviously the huge domestic demand. And we always say that in 22, when the world was debating whether they will have a recession or they will just about have a 0% growth, in India the debate was whether we'll grow at 6% and 7%. And I think it's a great debate to have. And that was all largely because almost 80 to 83% of the Indian economy is domestic. And we have all seen how after 3-4 years post-COVID, we have started going on holidays, spending on festivals, weddings, and so on and so forth. And that is clearly visible in the strong domestic demand. And I think the fourth thing is the digital, benefit which the economy is getting. I think India has lagged in terms of physical infrastructure. We're trying to make up for that. But the digital infrastructure has been awesome. Tax collections are up 20% because compliance is higher. We have the UPIs and so many other things which have made India as an economy very efficient. And I think all this leads us to believe that if there is one economy, large economy in the world, which can continue to grow at 6-7% for the next 7, 8, 10 years, I think it is India. And if you grow that, the economy size almost doubles from 3 trillion to 6.5 trillion. And I think that is the kind of wealth which can be made. So it will happen. Obviously, as I said, India relatively turns out to be quite expensive. And therefore, investors take their time, before taking a call on whether to go all out or just start nibbling.
Right, some very interesting views coming in from Sunil Singhania himself. But with that, we'll slip into a short break. Do stay tuned. We have more for you on the other side.
Welcome back. You're watching Market Cafe. Now, a good beginning is a harbinger of positive outcomes. That's the word coming in from the Finance Minister's monthly economic review. On the other hand, an RBI bulletin says that the Indian economy is slowly but surely recovering. But is there no room for complacency? Whether you are a knowledge worker or a businessman, an investor or a home buyer, it's always a good idea to understand the economic trajectory of the country. We will assess the state of the Indian economy with hard facts and latest numbers. But first, a quick report on this.
The entire cotton produce, whether it is in Gujarat or Rajasthan, the unseasonal rains have actually destroyed a pretty large part of the crop. Same goes for sugar. We already are deficit in running deficiency as far as rice is concerned. So, a bumper crop remains a question mark to my mind. Given the weather conditions, the predictions that we have internally is that it's going to be very difficult to see easing of prices, given that the output could be a very big question mark. Not just the late rains, but the distribution of the rains is going to be very difficult to predict. Sometimes you might have very heavy rains destroying the crops, or very less rains also destroying the crops. So I wouldn't go by the bumper crop season part of it, and consequently, the consumption would definitely suffer. And that's one of the reasons why I'm saying that the GDP growth forecast will have to taper down to below 6%.
Food inflation may not be that big a worry. So in the past also what we've seen is that even with an El Nino event happening, you had seen an output impact, but not necessarily an impact on inflation as such. Of course, some components of inflation like, milk inflation probably could remain a worry, in the summer at least. But if you look at other components like cereal prices, they are starting to behave much better. Of course, the government intervention in the market also has helped. At the same time, if you look at other components like oil seeds, pulses to some extent have also like started to sort of correct. Seasonal impact of vegetables and food could remain a little bit patchy in the near term, which is again a summer behavior. But I think overall food inflation is likely to remain benign for the year.
Right, and the other event that's playing out, especially on the domestic front, is with regard to the 2000 rupee note. The RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das yesterday met up with the PSU Bank board directors on the functionality of the PSBs. My colleague Prakash broke this particular story down yesterday.
The RBI has held an important meeting with the public sector banks where the board of directors of all public sector banks were present. Other than the governor, this meeting was also addressed by the deputy governors of RBI. A host of issues were there which have come for discussion, and the prime focus was the governance issue in public sector banks. We are also given to understand that the discussion was held on backdrop of US banking crisis as well. Issues related to strengthening of board and enhanced supervisory system of public sector banks was something which have been discussed in today's meeting. We are also informed by our sources that the RBI has conveyed banks that the Indian banking system is robust and immune from the external factors, but we cannot afford to let our guard down. Subsequently, RBI has asked banks to increase vigilance on minimizing operational and credit risk. We are also given to understand that a similar kind of meeting is going to be held on May 29 with the private sector banks as well.
And well, RBI has released its monthly bulletin where it states that India's growth is likely to be driven primarily by private consumption, supported by revival of the rural demand and renewed buoyancy in manufacturing in the April to June quarter. Let's go across to my colleague Ankur, who gets us the report.
Indian economy is slowly but surely recovering. These are the comments which has been made in RBI's bulletin, which is released on monthly basis. The other comments which are made are that headline inflation has eased to below 5% first time since November, and it is a good sign for the economy. It further says that corporate earnings are beating the consensus expectations, the results which has been reported in Q4, and particularly banks and financial has shown a good performance which is aided by robust credit growth. Remember, only the PSU banks has reported a net profit of more than 1 lakh crore, and that has been the performance which has been delivered by not only public sector banks but also private sector banks. As far as the growth numbers are concerned, the bulletin says that first quarter of FY 2024 is expected to be driven by the private consumption. Remember, Reserve Bank of India has already given a target of 6.4%. It raised to 6.5% in the last monetary policy. However, the expectation is that in the whole year, the inflation will ease around, and it also says that the pass-through of wholesale price numbers, which will also be seen in the retail inflation, and hence these prices are expected to ease in the time to come.
Right, and in other news, the Mumbai Trans-Harbour Link project to connect the mainland to Navi Mumbai is on the brink of completion. My colleague Aishwarya Patel speaks with the Metropolitan Commissioner SVR Srinivas on the project and their plans to incorporate public transport on this particular route. Here's an excerpt.
50% of, or more than 50% of the crash barriers are also completed. And the road work only we will do, remaining part. So the civil work is mostly getting completed very soon. But as I said, the most important thing is a big breakthrough is when island city gets connected to mainland. So that we are eagerly looking forward to in a 3-4 days. Yeah.
So the speed at which people can go from the mainland to Navi Mumbai or mainland to Pune has been really talked about, like in half an hour's time or 20 minutes you can reach Navi Mumbai and Pune in about an hour's time. So is that really practical at this point to say that you'll reach in 90 minutes, you'll reach Pune, because there are a lot of reports surrounding this. Is that possible?
No, see, main thing is connecting Mumbai to mainland, as I said. That will be about 12 to 13 minutes one should reach, because the design speed is 100 kilometers. Otherwise also less than 15 minutes in any case one can reach the mainland. Beyond that, we are also going to execute another project which connects MTHL to the Mumbai-Pune Expressway.
Is there going to be some sort of public transport that BEST is coming up with, or any sort of other public transports that...
See, in Mumbai is getting connected to mainland. So we have in Mumbai you have BST, but mainland you have MSRTC and also private operators. So number one is very clear that MMRDA wants to encourage and ensure that public transport plies on this, because it is meant for common man.
All right, moving on then. Digital bus tracking and ticketing app Cello receives $57 million funding from multiple investors in Series D round. As per sources, Anurag Joshi is here with what all he's picking up. Over to you, Anurag.
So, bus tracking and ticketing app Cello has raised $57 million of new funding. Now, this funding includes 45 million of equity funding. This is the Series D equity funding, which the app has received from Avatar Ventures, Lightrock, Waterbridge, and an investor, Amit Sehgal. In addition to this, it has received $12 million of debt funding, which is from Trifecta and Stride Ventures. Now, let's remember that following the funding, the total money which Cello has raised so far from investors totals $119 million. Just to give you a little background about Cello, so this is a bus tracking and ticketing app, and they operate in 51 cities in India, in Philippines, and in Thailand.
Right, thanks for that, Anurag. But the other story that we're keeping a track of is HNI and private equity and venture capitalist interest seems to be spiking in the Indian Premier League. Now, where does this increased interest take individual teams and their valuations? How this renewed interest turned IPL into a decacorn, which is a valuation of $10.9 billion over the 15 years. My colleague Sharath has some interesting data. Break it down for us, Sharath.
Well, yes, be it the HNIs, Ps and the VCs, they are actually trying for the investor pie when it comes to IPL. And of course, the brand numbers are very high. But we look at it, the Tiger Global itself is actually planning to invest almost $40 million. Now, this comes at a valuation for Rajasthan Royals at $650 million. And do remember, there is already a PE investor called US-based Red Capital, which has already invested in Rajasthan Royals. Apart from that, a lot of buzz coming in the unlisted space. And we are talking about Chennai Super Kings. Over here itself from its 2021 highs, however, there has been a correction in the unlisted space as we had taken in the ET Now research. Apart from this, do remember that there are key shareholders already there, big investors such as RK Damani, LIC, and even India Cements is having almost 31% stake, along with Captain MS Dhoni having stake in the company. Now, do remember that there is one more interesting stock, which is actually Gujarat Titans. And over here, we look at it, the UK-based CVC Capital. They have actually invested the first time as a P for an IPL team, and of course the bidding numbers coming in is more than 5,000 odd crore rupees. But the journey of IPL, especially in the branding part, that is something to watch out for. And from 2008 to 2023, this journey of 15 years, you look at it, the numbers have been mind-boggling. The valuations has actually increased by 10 times and it has become decacorn. And decacorn by definition means a startup or a company which is having a valuation of more than $10 billion. Now, be it broadcasting deal, title sponsorship, most of them have risen between 15 to 20 times over this 15-year period.
All right, that was some interesting renewed VC interest coming in for the IPL. And with that, it's time for us to slip into a short break. But before that, we at Times Network are back with a flagship event, India Economic Conclave, which is known to set the stage for driving India's economic agenda. As we move forward on the path of integrated equitable development, which is all-inclusive, all-pervasive, universal, and one that strengthens not just the Indian economy, but the global one as well. To pursue this agenda, the theme for this year is India, the emerging third superpower. IEC will feature the biggest voices from politics, global markets, economy, and corporate world. So, get ready to catch all the action here on Times Network. Welcome back. You're watching Market Cafe. But before we begin with the rest of the news flow, let's quickly take you through all that is lined up on the market. At 8:40 a.m., we have J.K. Arora of Som Distilleries on the expansion plans for the company. At 9 a.m., we have Atul Kumar Goyal of PNB on the earnings for the bank. At 9:20 a.m., we have Prashant Jain of 3P Investment Managers on his market mantra. At 9:40, we have Nilesh Gupta of Vijay Sales and Amit Kumar of Symphony Limited on the summer demand trends. And at 9:50 a.m., we have VS Money of Gland Pharmaceuticals on the earnings for the company. At 10 a.m., we have Srishant Challa of CCL Products on the coffee prices heating up. At 10:20 a.m., we have Rajdeep Gupta of Route Mobile on the earnings for the company.
Right, it's that time of the show where we take you through all the stocks which are buzzing or which ought to buzz in trade today on the back of the news flow that's come through since close yesterday, and Vamakshi has been going through that data. Vamakshi, good morning. Talk to us about the key ones which you feel will be buzzers.
Well, yes, good morning to all of you all. Let's first start off with some of the earnings candidates. Shree Cement reported an inline set of numbers. Revenue did see an uptick of almost 17% on a year-on-year basis and came in at 5,100 crores. But it is the EBITDA margin that actually contracted by almost 360 basis points on account of higher cost. Net profit also took a hit of almost 20% on a year-on-year basis and declined from 657 crores to 526 crores. Fusion Microfinance, on the other hand, came out with a good set of numbers. Net interest income rose by almost 63% on a year-on-year basis to 274 crores, while the PPOP increased to almost 48%. Net profit, however, almost went up by 8 times to 115 crores. BPCL also came out with a strong set of numbers. Now, revenue did decline by 1% on a sequential basis to 1,18,112 crores, but it is the EBITDA margin that actually saw a very good expansion from 3.6% to 9.4% on a sequential basis. The net profit has also tripled for this counter, coming in at 6,478 crores. ITI will also be in focus on the back of an order win. The company has bagged a 3,889 crore worth of advance purchase order from BSNL. HFCL is also in focus on the back of an order win. It has received 220 crore worth of orders from Reliance Jio as well as Reliance Projects. Capri Global will also be in focus after the board has decided to defer its capital raising plans. The MD Rajesh Sharma is also expected to take responsibility as the CFO for the next 1 year. And lastly, watch out for Veranda Learning Solutions. The company is expected to acquire 7 education companies via its wholly owned arm, and the total valuation of these acquisitions is expected to be over 400 crores. So largely, these are all the stocks that you should watch out for.
Right, thanks for that, Vamakshi. And of course, the other stock which will be buzzing in trade today will be PB Fintech. It will be in focus on the back of earnings and a solid set coming through from PB Fintech. Of course, as of now, not profit making, but they've guided for profitability very, very soon, which is as early as FY24 in the current financial year. Yes. So we're looking at revenue, which is up 42% quarter on quarter, 61% year on year. Our revenue came in just a shade below 870 crore. We're looking at EBITDA, which is positive by 28 crore versus the negative EBITDA of 28 crore in Q3, as well as negative EBITDA of 80 crore in Q4 of FY22. EBITDA margins therefore came in at 3% versus the negative 5% same time last quarter, and the PAT loss came down from 87 crore loss in Q3 to just 9 crore in Q4. So we're seeing a winding down of the losses. We're looking at within the existing business basket, solid growth coming through. Insurance premium went up 18% sequentially, credit disbursals 11% sequentially, revenue was up 20% sequentially, and EBITDA was up 146% sequentially, and we're looking at core adjusted EBITDA margins of 13% versus the 6% number same time last quarter. Within the new initiatives basket, margins have compressed with regard to the margin losses. They've come down from 12% in Q3 to -1% in Q4. So clearly, even within the new business basket, we're looking at healthy traction. As of now, of course, we're looking at better than anticipated numbers from PB Fintech. Need to wait and watch how the stock opens up in trade today.
That's right, Harsh. But besides PB Fintech, there's another share that's been in news, and that is Gland Pharma, because Gland Pharma plunged after a disappointing Q4 number, and this is not the first time that the stock has tanked post its quarterly numbers. We have seen in the past few quarters that every time the result comes out, it totally weighs down the stock heavily, and that's what happened yesterday also. Moreover, Morgan Stanley sold about more than 0.5% stake on 9.6 lakh shares at an average price of ₹930 per share. My colleague Shrishti joins in with the trend of the stock reacting to its earnings over the last few quarters.
Well, yes, absolutely. The stock has been disappointing its shareholders, especially for the past 6 quarters, because just a day after its earnings, we have seen a fall in this particular counter, and this time the fall has really been brutal, where in the past 2 days, the stock is actually down over 32%. Remember that Gland Pharma was one stock which saw bumper listing, 14% gains on the listing day itself, and in just 10 months, the stock was more than doubled. But after touching those all-time high levels, if you see the fall, that has been very brutal, 80% downturn coming in over there. Let's talk about the recent earnings, where a sheer disappointment coming in on all the parameters, although the analysts were expecting a weak set of numbers, and the factor was one of their key fungal products, which actually lost its exclusivity rights, and from 440 crores sales being recorded in FY22, that has been come down to 65 crores. So they were actually factoring in those numbers, but despite that, there were many negative surprises into the earnings, wherein they do highlight that one of their key customers has filed for a bankruptcy. So that is one big hit that the Gland Pharma is taking, because that has actually reduced the supply to that customers, which is in a financial discovery difficulty. They have lost certain other customers as well, and they also have had temporary shutdown in some of their production line, which had additional impact of 30 to 40 crores just in Q4. Other than that, the sales of their heparin, that was also low due to the lower pricing, and Gland Pharma is actually not ready to go away with their inventories, which is actually at a higher cost, and they are not ready to sell it at a lower cost and take a hit there. So this is what the analysts are highlighting, and they are also saying that the granular details seems to be very unconvincing right now. The management failed to provide any clear visibility on the stabilization ahead, and those are some of the reasons that we have seen downgrades also coming in post earnings.
Right, thanks for that, Srishti. Let's quickly move on to Vedanta. It's declared its first dividend for the new fiscal year at 18.5 rupees per share. Let's go across to my colleague Sharad to understand what this means for the company going forward, not just that how will this move impact their debt reduction plans in FY24. Sharad.
Well, yes, in focus we are having Vedanta, and they have declared their first dividend for FY24, and do remember the amount is coming in at 18.5 rupees per share. Now this translates to almost 6,900 crores of flows coming in from the dividend portion, and the interesting part is the dividend yield, that itself is up more than 6%. And for the shareholders, the record date is set at May 30th. Now, looking at the dividend history of Vedanta, we see, of course, in FY20 and FY21, the numbers were not very much important and they were negligible. But from FY22 onwards, the numbers have been bigger. 45 rupees coming in FY22 as dividends, and in FY23, the bumper numbers were there, coming at more than 100 rupees given in terms of dividend. Now, do remember the analysts have also stated that the dividend numbers might become lesser this year, but the most important thing is the company's parent company, which is Vedanta Resources. They are having almost 68% stake in the company. So they plan to actually deleverage the balance sheet, and they're expecting to pay out roughly, you could say, almost $4 billion of deleveraging over the next 3 years. So this dividend paying exercise is one of them. Now looking ahead, of course, you must be wondering which are the highest dividend paying stocks coming in for FY23, and of course making it to the top of the list are the two companies, Hindustan Zinc and Vedanta, for FY23 with more than 20% of dividend yield coming in. But there are other companies also in this dividend theme play, and these companies include Sanofi India, REC and Oil India, where their dividend yield ranges between 8 to 13%.
Me? Alright, then we're completely out of time on this one. Harsh and I will take your leave for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. The market will take the action forward now.